Welcome to the Prado Museum. We're here again on the social media programming with our weekly session in English, just a few moments before it opens to the public. And this is a project, as you know, supported by our U.S. nonprofit, American Friends of the Prado Museum, and our supporters. And we encourage everyone to find out about our institution that supports this museum and the Fundación Amigos del Museo del Prado. And today I'm really excited to be in one of the most beautiful spots in Madrid, maybe in the whole, much further, which is the main gallery of the Prado Museum, which has just been rearranged and made even more beautiful, if that is possible. And we have these sculptures that have been placed here. They were in a different section of the museum, and now they're here doing exactly what they were supposed to do, which is to give us the image for posterity of the great Charles V, who was the King of Spain from 1516 and the Holy Roman Emperor from 1520 onwards. His majestic image, official image, that the sculptors Leone and Pompeo Leoni, who were some of the best Renaissance sculptors working in the 16th century, and they had a direct relationship with the emperor and had these direct commissions with were creating his image alongside, at the same time, as the painter who's probably more well known to us today, Titian, who was in the world of painting, also creating their image for posterity. So here we have Charles V. And then the image that they're looking for is very classical. He was the Holy Roman Emperor. And so they want to go back. This is also the Renaissance fascination with the classical world. He is, we have this bust with armor that is very like a Roman emperor, with even classical elements like a Medusa on the armor, but also Christianized with this symbol here. This is the Toison de Oro, which is also classical, has to do with Jason and the Argonauts, but it's the symbol of the Spanish monarchy, and then including Christ with the cross, which was a direct inspiration from Michelangelo's sculpture in Rome. All this bust on a pedestal that is on top of an eagle, which was the symbol of the emperor, of the Habsburg family, with two classical nudes on this bust. So a Christianized Renaissance classical image with a beautiful portrait of the emperor, so that his image is with us today. And I want to take a moment, because there's 4 sculptures here that have been placed, to talk about Charles is the grandson of the Catholic kings of Spain, Isabel and Ferdinand, and of Mary of Burgundy and Maximilian Habsburg, the Holy Roman Emperor. And his family is here with these 4 sculptures, because in front of him we have his sister, who we know today as Mary of Hungary, because she married the King of Hungary and Bohemia, but she widowed by the time she was 25, and she was a great intellectual, a very smart woman. And Charles, her brother, had so much faith in her that he named her the governess of the Low Countries, all of their Burgundian inheritance that he had. And the Low Countries is now what we know as Belgium and part of the Netherlands, the surrounding area. But she was the governess of this area for her brother Charles. And she commissioned this portrait directly to the Leones, and she preferred to be portrayed as a widow, very austere, with a missal book, for Mass, Christianity. She's dressed in these robes that tie together around her head, and they come down with a stole that have the 2 crosses. And so she is the image of majestic austerity. And she had a program for the palace outside of Brussels, which was the Palace of Binche, and she commissioned this portrait, also with that of Charles' son, which is Philip II, which we're going to head there next, because the idea is that her grandfather, Maximilian, in Innsbruck, also had a sculpture portrait gallery of the family that accompanied them. And so she was recreating this idea. Charles also knew this, and they had this idea of creating these sculptures, sculptural portraits, which are more life-size. You can walk among them. It's a different type of presence. And now I'd also like to, as we walk to Philip II, talk about the status of the Leoni, father and son, Leone and Pompeo, their status also compared with Titian, because I think Titian is much more well known to us today. And it was the curator in the Prado that helps me realize that they have the same social status. They were both in direct service to Charles and to Philip and to Mary of Hungary, and they were given the Knight of the Golden Spur. So Leone was given the Knight of the Golden Spur just as Titian was. So they were both recognized for their artistic services to the crown. And here we have this fantastic portrait of Philip II. So this is Charles' son, and he would be King of Spain beginning in the second half of the 1500s. And he, at one time, this is really an aside, but at one time he was married to, because he had 4 wives, but he was married to Mary Tudor when Mary Tudor was the Queen of England, and he was King Consort of England. So here he's at the pedestal of this sculpture. It says Philip, King of England, which would have changed if they had had offspring, would have changed the history of the whole course of European history. But this sculpture, the Leonis, they were originally goldsmiths and made beautiful small metals with maximum details, and they, with this commissions, learned how to be great sculptors. And I also want to add how difficult it is to make a bronze sculpture that is this size in the 1500s with the technology then, because it's an alloy between 2 metals that if you get it too hot, it'll separate. If you get it too cool, it won't alloy. If it doesn't, there's like 18 steps to the process, or 25. There's an enormous amount of steps that you have to pour in the bronze while it's liquid. It has to be able, the air has to come out. If there's any bubbles or anything, the whole thing will break. It's very delicate and dangerous and risky. It's extremely risky. And to have these sections that are separate are very delicate. So it is a great feat. Also, it took them about 1 year to make each sculpture. This is what I learned from Elena from one of her conferences of the restoration workshop. So they were learning how to make that. They were taking all these steps. They had to know the whole process, which was, again, extremely complex. But here, Philip II, we have a great portrait of him. His hair looks very natural. His beard looks very natural. And he's, again, in an armor like a Roman general, which is also Christianized. He also has the Medusa, and here the Assumption of the Virgin Mary, so a Christianized Roman general. And then just, there's amazing details throughout this whole sculpture. You have to see it, but let's just look at the shoes. The shoes are amazing. Okay, so these are like a Roman type of footwear that only the emperors or generals would have, and the toes are open. All of this is closed, and it would be a little animal, and you see there's a head of an animal with the animal claws hanging down to the side. So anyway, these are fascinating and very, very fun to see. Okay, and so there's this wonderful portrait here, and we also see it's the moment he's the King of England. And just as an aside, this is the portrait that Mary Tudor would have received to decide, kind of like the engagement portrait of saying, would I like to marry this Prince Philip of Spain? And this is the portrait by Titian. So, you know, Titian and Leoni both are creating the image, and they're now here where we can enjoy them together. And very lastly, Philip II's mother, Charles V's wife, the Empress Isabelle, and she had died quite younger when she was in her 30s, but also was very important. Whenever Charles would leave Spain, because he was King of Spain, but also the Holy Roman Emperor, whenever he would have to leave Spain to deal with affairs for the empire, she would stay in command. And so she was also the image of one of the perfect Habsburg women. How do they portray her? I know not only beautiful, she was known to be very beautiful, but that she was smart, she was regal, and she would also rule in place of Charles. So we have this fantastic fashion with this amazing detail, that all of these details are carved in, many during the foundry, and then some also during the work afterwards, worked in cold. But the fabric of her dress is like a Damascus, also then with woven kind of, if it were have metal threads or silver threads or golden threads, and jewelry. She has this beautiful jewel here, and there's also a portrait of her also by Titian. So as you see, the Leoni and Titian are very united in creating their image of this family that was so important, that at that time Charles and his sisters and his brothers, all of them, there were 6, they were considered the most regal family in Europe. All of them became kings or queens, either by consort or by marriage or directly throughout Europe. So we're at the moment of the height of the Habsburgs, and their image is here in the center of the Prado. Their artistic taste creates a great imprint and the personality that begins all of the Spanish tradition, and you have to come see it. It's a wonderful place. So thank you very much for listening, for being with us. Find out about American Friends of the Prado, find out about the Fundación Amigos del Prado, and just come enjoy this wonderful place on earth. Thank you.